Welcome back. Today we are going to work still with a little bit of hamstring hinge at the hips, but now we're going to work a little into the groin. As mentioned before, a lot of these meridians kind of run the length of your body, so they move through the hips. Today we're back to some bladder and kidney and liver and gallbladder, but we are focused on your bladder and your gallbladder. Now, I gave you lots of tidbits in your email, and this 20 minutes is short, so we'll keep it to that. However, time to get into some fascia. Yesterday we were talking about letting go and releasing. Well, how do we do that? Yes, by yoga, yes, by acupressure, but these focal points of Chinese medicine, as well as yin, target, as I mentioned on day one, connective tissue. Your fascia is one of those things. So as we get into toes pose, because speaking of fascia, come on in, curl your toes underneath. You're going to be on your knees.
Wait, like this one?
Yeah, like that one. Now curl your toes under.
Okay.
And we're going to sit back on the heels. Now, first things first, everyone's toes, yeah, you keep your knees down. It might be intense. So depending on what you do, if you're on your feet all day, how far your toes flex or don't flex, we're going to try and relax into this pose. Now, it might be some hip stuff, some knee stuff, some foot stuff going on, so you could always slide a block underneath your bum and between your heels. That might give you a little bit of, so yeah, right up on top of your heels. So go put it the long way and put it over your heels.
Oh, over my heels.
Yeah, so move your little, wiggle your toes in, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, we got to breathe through this a little bit, but your fascia in your foot is supremely thick, similar to your IT bands. You may have heard before the terms plantar fasciitis. While you rest in this pose,
It's not very restful.
you want to come back to what I said yesterday, which is the practice being not so much the ability to do perfectly the pose or the meditation, right? But as we kind of shift in and out of it, fall out of poses, come back again and again and again. That's really what life is about, right? Falling down, we all do it. It's more important that we get back up, keep trucking. So you can adjust the amount of stretch that you're feeling in your feet by moving your knees a little forward, away from the toes, or moving them back. Now, it's not just the toes that flex, but our ankles, and we each have different flex points, range of motion in these feet of ours. So whatever shows up, shows up. But these feet don't get a lot of love. We hoof around on them all day, every day. So we're still going to bat away another 12 breaths, believe it or not, while we think about this idea of fascia. So fascia is connective tissue. It's like this little webbing, basically, made up mostly of water somehow, and it supports your entire body. It wraps around and encases all of your bones, all of your organs, all of your muscles, every single one of them, all of your blood vessels, your nerve endings, literally the stuff that keeps you together, and it's separate from your brain, meaning that it has a sort of mind of its own. It can be tight, it can loosen a little bit, separate of your muscles. Your muscles might be quite loose, but you might be holding patterns of, working at the desk or sitting in a car or whatever it is, past traumas. We hold your connective tissue, your fascia will hold adhesion, right? These patterns and still be drawing us into tight spaces. So it can contract even though you're stretching muscle. You may have felt like no matter how much you stretch, you never get any more flexible, nothing ever resolves. Well, this is why. This is what Yin is working on, holding these spaces for 3 to 5 minutes. We are going to move out. You can press the tops of your feet onto the mat if you like, a little pitter-patter. Wiggle, wiggle, whatever you got to do to kind of loosen up the feet, and we're going to come right into a squat. So similar to Malasana as we did yesterday, toes out, heels in, sink the hips. Again, you can support your buns there, but you're trying to fold over, kind of melt into your thighs. So maybe you have room to rest your torso on the thighs. You know, you might be rocking your weight a little to the balls of your feet or your heels, but it's all about gravity and allowance. You are not going to muscle your way through fascia. It supports roughly 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. That's better than Spider-Man as far as I can tell. I don't know. I mean, your body is incredible. You can tell I'm hugely fascinated by the body, but today fascia takes the cake. So knowing that you can't force yourself into opening up these adhesions in our fascia, it's tough enough to muscle through muscle, so ain't gonna happen with your fascia. You really just gotta melt in here. Your jaw, all of your facial muscles, maybe rock a little horse breath. Kind of wiggle it out. Let your arms fall a little heavier. Take another 12 breaths. Right, we're really looking to diffuse tension, diffuse heat on a very physical level today. So I mentioned yesterday that ligaments also can lengthen because they do tighten up, but we're not moving past 6% because when you reach that point of lengthening your ligaments, which hold your joints together, bones attached to bones, right? They will tear. That is not what we're looking for. And then your tendons also keeping you together are supposed to be elastic. They too can tighten. We can stretch them a little bit, but you know, elastic like a rubber band, stretch far, far less than your muscles. And the interesting part about fascia is that you won't have sort of a feeling, right? They're not connected to the brain. Although they do take in a lot of information, they're not in communication with your brain. They're not really attached to your nervous system. So you don't get a lot of feedback. You will never know that it's happening. It just does. You gotta hold these spaces for about 3 to 5 minutes, which probably feels maybe closer to 40 depending on what the pose is. But how about we take 5 more breaths, soothing breaths, settling breaths. If you tend to have tension headaches, then maybe you start there, diffusing not just consciousness throughout the body, away from the head, the mind, but stress as well. And then as you slowly come out of this, we're going to come onto your bum, and we're going to find snail. Right, this is the posture that's also translated in Iyengar yoga to head to knee pose, the supta, your reclined version. So you can grab backs of your calves, your toes, your feet. You're drawing your feet over your head, kind of rocking, massaging your back. Remember, you want to find that point where it's just a little less work to hold the legs up. You're using the pressure from gravity, the weight of your body on the back. It might feel nice to work up towards the shoulders. Remember, we're not going towards Karnapidasana, which is what you take out of a shoulder stand, and Halasana, which is on the tops of your shoulders. So we don't want to move towards the cervical spine. You want to stay in the thoracic part of your spine, which is below the shoulder blades there, mid-back, through the shoulders, up to the base of your neck. I'm going to breathe here. Maybe another 12 breaths. Maybe you try belly breathing while you're filling up the lungs, expanding the rib cage. That might rock you a little out of the pose. As you exhale, it might rock you into the pose, kind of exploring some breath. Just like as we work into those acupressure points, to get a little more specific, maybe you can do that here. One of the best ways to release fascia adhesion is actual pressure. That's why we use those yoga tune-up balls. That's why we do acupressure. Right? Movement is a big component. Every night you go to sleep, most of us get at least a few hours, several hours if we're lucky. I think recommended 8. We're all a little bit different, but when you're immobile, And it could be while you're sleeping, it could be while you're sitting at a desk all day or in a car, or whatever the case may be. That fascia starts to build up. It starts to get sticky, it starts to layer, it starts to harden. Sometimes we're not hydrated, it starts to dry out. Fascia becomes less mobile, more inclined to those adhesions, keeping us immobile, which is definitely not what we're looking for. So again, if you wondered why you keep stretching muscle, and again you don't get any more flexible, or every day you wake up just as tight, just as broken, feeling anyways, right? Feeling busted, as they say, this is why. So we want to use these pressure points, we want to use gravity, we want to hold these spaces for those 3 to 5 minutes. So as you rock slowly out of your snail, we're going to set up your butterfly. Coming onto your bum, letting your feet touch, soles of your feet touch, and your knees simply splay wide. Again, if it helps to sit on something to make it easier for you to fold gently forward or to relax into this, then go for it, right? Cookie sheets, cushions, whatever you got, books. But we're going to use gallbladder 41. And it's on the outer side of your foot. So you want to find your pinky toe. And if you lift your toes, you're going to see the little tendon that runs from the pinky toe up the top of your foot. You want to go on the outside of that. And there's going to be a little nook, a little divot where all of the conglomeration of your foot bones at the top of the foot turn to your metatarsal bones, so right, your toe bones. And in that little nook, again, maybe sifting around a little, you're going to hold those pressure points gently. Relax the shoulders, the jaw, kind of melt in as much as you can while you're here for those roughly 2 or 3 minutes. Right, in more of a vinyasa practice, we're engaging the hips to abduct, right, the hips, to move the knees towards the floor. We're extending the spine, pressing the shoulder blades behind us to restack the spine. All of these actions that we are not doing here, this is all gravity, all ease, kind of melting in, releasing as much as you can, letting these poses work on you. Now today you're getting a little more information behind why I tend to say that in my regular classes, right? You have a little bit of external rotation happening in that hip from the femur bone, right, your thigh bone, hips being abducted. So it's almost like acupressure from the inside in the hip, not just on your toes here. Stretching connective tissue, tendons, ligaments around the joints, all of your fascia that encase every part of your being. But you're also breathing here. So a lot of work happening. You want to leave room for that. And more importantly, notice what's happening, right? Maybe you feel little shifts. Maybe things are loosening up. Maybe it's just your jaw that's dropping a little heavier. Your brow is starting to soften. Maybe you feel it's easier to breathe. Whatever it is, if it helps to close your eyes, go for it. 8, 7. A little horse breath. And in releasing all of this physically in the body is useful to release the anger and the fear that's associated with the bladder and kidney and then liver and gallbladder meridians. Now, we tend to hold those emotions, tend to be hot, fiery. Today we are releasing, focusing on that release. And this gallbladder 41 helps us do that. Right? It's going to release everything from tension, headaches, shoulders, hips, IT band, your knees, all the way down to your feet. If you look at the meridian, it runs, I believe it starts behind the eye. It does a little loop-de-loo up and around the top of your head, comes down, The gallbladder actually comes down, wraps around your waist like a belt, and then continues down through the leg and the foot. So lots of points today. We're focusing on gallbladder 41. As you slowly release your fingers, release your feet, release the knees, release the hips, release this pose, we're going to open to extend the legs towards Dragonfly, which is basically your wide-legged forward fold. It's not about bringing your legs super wide. You want to be able to comfortably have your toes face the sky. You want to move the flesh of your bum out from underneath the sits bones. And again, we want to be able to recline a little bit forward. So if it's useful to sit on a bolster or a pillow or something to, again, prop your weight to move forward, you can go for that. You can set up blocks, bolsters underneath your torso and your forehead as you fold forward. And take all the time in the world to get set up. And we're going to find a little point on the backs of your knees. So bladder 40. On the back of your knee, which you might actually just take a peek at, whether it's my knee or your knee. You have little divots, right, where your femoris comes down and attaches in the back of your knee. Back of knee almost looks like a diamond. So if you kind of visualize that diamond from those 2 points come up where it connects, is going to be your bladder 40. This is a pain point for pretty much the entire body. So you're going to hold behind both knees in that point. Help clear some of the heat from this meridian. Clear some of the heat from our body, these emotions that we hold. And it's basically good from head to toe, right? Back, down into your sciatic and your hips, your IT band again. So if you can hold these points and kind of recline a little forward, or maybe you're just kind of closing your eyes, letting gravity take over, go for it. Again, not exaggerating too much, just some gentle pressure we're going to hold. While you let this work on all of your fascia, which you're not going to feel, remember. You're not going to muscle your way through, not with it supporting 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. I mean, that's incredible. I feel like there should be a duel between the bones and your fascia, see who wins. Just be curious to see what can support more. If this is intriguing you, maybe you can do a little research and get back to me. Right? But again, letting all of the tension in your body diffuse. If there's a particular place where you tend to carry it, some of us carry it in the calves or the feet or the hips or shoulders or jaw, right? It's a little bit different day to day, person to person. So maybe just bring your mind there, breathe deeply, focusing on the exhales. There's little bits of allowance. 8, 7. Right? Again, instead of focusing on the emotions that are normally tied when we're out of balance, anger and fear with these two meridians, really focusing our attention on what we want to happen, what we need to happen, which is that little bit of balance, the release of all the tension, all the heat, all the holding. Right, all the adhesions in our fascia. We often talk about ingrained impressions in the mind that we carry. Your fascia has these same ingrained impressions. Could be as simple as sitting over a computer hunching all the day, every day. It could be trauma that we've experienced, things that we're holding. even our breath, holding the breath. So as you slowly release the knees and move yourself maybe off the blocks or bolsters, whatever you're propped up onto, we're going to come onto your bum. We're going to come all the way down onto your back. And you can slide right into Shavasana if that feels good. Otherwise, I'm going to offer you a little bit of that banana asana, by hooking a heel over the other, reaching up for elbows, stretching the side body. Whatever feels good. But letting your eyes close, letting yourself connect fully to all the bits and goodies throughout the body. Again, so we're not isolated anywhere in particular, not the shoulders, not the mind, not wherever you tend to carry your tension. And settling into this little bit of ease as you take a generous breath in and a generous breath out. One more for good measure, filling up and letting it out. So as you keep the breath moving, I invite you, if you have time to linger, go for it. Be good to yourselves. Focus on this space. Take it with you, and we will see you tomorrow. Toodles.